matters not what someone is born, but what they grow to be," said by Albus Dumbledore in the famous series Harry Potter. For most, a recognizable name, a recognizable face. But for many, this book series was banished from their schools, so they never got the chance to read it. I'm Soben Provenzali, and today I'm going to be talking about why banishing books from school is robbing children of learning what they could be, rather than what they have always been told. There are many schools, such as St. Edward Catholic School in Nashville, that have banished the series Harry Potter because it promotes magic, and they say that magic is portrayed as good and evil, when it is essentially evil, and will bring bad spirits upon the students who read it. This argument is untrue and essentially unreal, but the Harry Potter series deals with a lot of issues that are still relevant. For instance, racism, recognition of the past and things that have gone bad, and redemption in people who made mistakes. Harry Potter has many representations of racism and classism. There's a group of people who have magic powers called Muggleborns. They're people who were born from those who do not have magical powers, and magic was essentially given to them. And then there are those who believe that magic is sacred, and the families who have always had magic in their blood should be the ones controlling everything, and they should be the ones with the power, even though there's no true difference between the two, because both of them can perform the same way, and even some Muggleborns perform better. One way that classism and racism is represented is through the word mudblood. The people who are of magical descent call those who are Muggleborns mudbloods as a racial slur, essentially, and treat them completely differently because they believe that they're better because they have always had magic in their family. That sounds a lot like the people who have a lot of money and they believe poor people are just lazy, or the people who think that because they're a certain race, they're better than others who aren't. Harry Potter teaches kids to question this and to not follow blindly the idea that they might be better because their family has one thing, whereas other families don't. One of the many examples of this is Draco Malfoy. He has been in a magical family his whole life, and he even tried to convince many of the characters that they should be with him because they're magical. He even goes so far as to call Hermione Granger, who is the brightest witch of her time in the book, a mudblood, which is an extremely offensive slur in the books, and she punches him, which I think he deserved, and so it teaches kids that you shouldn't deal with that. Harry Potter teaches people not to blindly question what they're told by people in power. For instance, Fudge, who was the head of the Ministry of Magic, so basically the highest person in power in the magical world, was essentially robbing people of the truth and protecting themselves because he wanted his reputation to be kept. He had the information that there was evil that was going against them, and that many people had died from before and been killed by Voldemort and his cohort of evil buddies called the Death Eaters, and he went out of his way to pretend it wasn't real and to take away from other people who were questioning him because he was afraid that he would not be able to keep his position of power. On the other hand, Albus Dumbledore went against the Ministry and went against what other people were saying to say what was true and what was right, because he cared more about saving people than he cared about his reputation. He even went so far as to say that he had failed many times. He admitted to Harry Potter in many books that he had made mistakes and that he regretted many of his actions. I think that acknowledging the past and acknowledging that what you did might not have been right is the most important step to creating a better world and to making your people better rather than just pretending that what you did in the past didn't matter. Harry Potter also shows redemption through characters like Sirius Black, who was originally thought of as a felon who had killed many people and was out to kill Harry Potter, when really they found out that he was the godfather of Harry Potter and the things that he'd been accused of were actually done by another person who was betraying his friends and the people who cared about him to get more power. It says that power isn't the most important thing, but kindness and love are. And in the end, Sirius Black dies for the people he cares about and does what he can to save the people he loves. Harry Potter encourages kids to learn others' full story, to not just assume things about them because of who they are and what they see. For instance, Draco Malfoy is known as the meanest person. He always goes out of his way to mistreat people. They think that he's just a bad guy. But really, they find out that he had been treated that way his whole life by his family, that he had a strict set of rules of what he could be and what he couldn't be. And in the end, they betrayed the person that they followed to save each other, to care that what they had always believed was less important than what they could become. Another example of that is Severus Snape, who treated Harry horribly through all the books, and although I don't think that what his story is makes out for his actions, you learn that he had been bullied by Harry Potter's dad, that he had lasting trauma and scars from the way that Harry Potter's father had treated him, and that he had been in love the whole time with Harry Potter's mother, and he had been hurt and betrayed by them. And that's why he was so mean and cruel to Harry Potter. And also, everything he did for Dumbledore. He went out of his way to save people and to take care of people, even though he had been mean and malicious, and he could have just joined the evil side and been a terrible monster his whole life. Recognizing your past mistakes is a really important part of life, and it's one that Harry Potter teaches so well, with Dudley Dursley, who had always been cruel to Harry Potter because that's what he had seen his whole life, apologized for his actions at the end, and it even said that eventually they became friends again and they were okay. Preventing children from seeing media that you think is going to expose them to bad things is limiting their ability to understand what's going on in their world. It's telling them that they're not smart enough to go out of their way to learn and to teach themselves what they need to know. Schools banning books tells kids that they're not smart enough to learn from things like that. It tells them that just because it's fiction and because it's not completely relevant to life, that maybe they're gonna have a hard time not hearing that and seeing that and becoming the bad parts. But really, you're just taking away kids' ability to learn and to make mistakes and to realize that what they need to do and what they're doing might not always be right, and to acknowledge when they've done things wrong and to move forward from their past to become the best person that they can be.